Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to this very special episode of You Are What You Read. So we're back with one of your favorite people on planet Earth. I know he's mine. Father James Martin is a Jesuit priest. He is an editor-at-large of America magazine. Father Jim is also a consultor to the Vatican's Dicastery for Communication, and he hosts the Spiritual Life podcast. Please go over and subscribe. You will love it. Some of his books include Learning to Pray, Jesus, a Pilgrimage, and The Jesuit Guide to Almost Everything. He's written a new memoir called Work in Progress. In this book, Father Jim reminisces about the summer jobs that prepared him for his calling. Starting at the age of 13, Father Jim delivered newspapers, then went on to bus tables at an ice cream parlor. He was a caddy, so he ferried golf equipment. And he was an usher at the local movie theater. This is a book that will remind you of your own experiences and the jobs that you started out with, but there's a spiritual thread here that's quite beautiful about finding your purpose in life. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud to introduce my friend, Father James Martin. I think I shared with you, I don't know how many years ago, a lovely lady handed me Between Heaven and Mirth, Why Joy, Humor, and Laughter Are at the Heart of a Spiritual Life, which is one of your books. And we're going to post all your books because I think each of them is a little gem and has something to do with something the seeker is going through at any point in their lives. And now you explain it. But this is so beautifully rendered because Father Jim, what I found in this book was the why your life went the way it did. So why did you want to do a little reckoning at this point in your young life?
Well, first of all, great to be back with you. I love being on your podcast. I love you, and I love all the things you say and all the things you write. I know that's a big
Thank you.
net, but I started out writing this book, which uses summer jobs as a lens through which to see, a vocation, and then it takes you into working at GE and then joining the Jesuits. Initially, the book, to be honest, started out as a book of sort of funny summer job stories. And my publisher said, "You can't just write a book about funny summer job stories." And I said, "Why not?" And they said, "People are going to want more from you." And on reflection, I thought, you know what? This can really become a vocation book, and to show how kind of God was at work in those crazy stories and in my funny summer jobs and in tragedy, and then led me to the Jesuits. So I say the book is about finding work and finding God. That's sort of two parts of the book. But I also think it's a kind of vanished age. I mean, this is 50 years ago. The first chapter takes place during the bicentennial, 1976, which I remember. I'm not sure if you remember. Yeah.
I remember it, and I'm going to tell you what was so interesting to me in retrospect, looking back on that, is how ginned up it was for all of us. It was ginned up. We were to be wearing red, white, and blue at school. We were supposed to be studying history. We were going to make a difference. And then I read your story, but you were in the epicenter of the whole ding dang thing, which was Philadelphia.
Right. I grew up outside of Philadelphia in a town called Plymouth Meeting. And the first story in the book is called How the Bicentennial Wagon Train Almost Made Me Lose My Job, because there was this thing. I just loved saying the phrase bicentennial wagon train. The bicentennial wagon train was this Conestoga wagon train that was going to go from the west to the east, backwards. And I was working as a busboy in the Ice Cream Inn in Plymouth Meeting, and I bussed all these tables for these people who had left their tables to go see the bicentennial wagon train passing by, and got into a lot of trouble. And I tell that story in the first chapter. But yeah, we were in the epicenter. And as you remember, everyone was super excited about it. The bicentennial was a big deal. I'm not sure if the 250 is going to be as big of a deal. One of the things that I look back on is really, it sounds a little halcyon, but the country was united. I would say that everybody, more or less, was excited about it, and it was a very positive thing. So my first chapter is not only about the bicentennial and the bicentennial wagon train, but how I screwed up royally
Well,
as a busboy.
the great writers, of which I consider you one, the great writers always manage to tell a personal story against the backdrop of history.
Oh, I never thought of that. Yeah.
Yes, and that's what you did here. And so to kick it off with this it was hilarious, but it also, I have to say, it sent a chill through me because like you, I had a lot of jobs. But the way you tell it, it was always from a point of who am I?
Mm,
Who am I? Who am I really? And I found it interesting that the book built to something that Thomas Merton said
mm,
that is the backbone. Now that I've read this, I understand you. I understand you,
hmm
which is this. One night upon reading No Man is an Island, I came upon this passage. Why do we have to spend our lives striving to be something that we would never want to be if we only knew what we wanted? Why do we waste our time doing things which, if we only stop to think about them, are just the opposite of what we were made for?
Yeah, those words changed my life.
You changed mine just having read them. And I have to tell you, I'm going to send this book, even though I don't know her. But I think that was the basis of Greta Gerwig's Barbie movie. What was I
Mm.
made for? And Billie Eilish's song. I think they got it from Merton, and I'm going to find out.
Well, and they might have. I mean, she's pretty Catholic from what I understand.
Yes, yes.
No, I was working, at that point in the book, which comes towards the end, I was working at General Electric, and, business is a real vocation for a lot of people. It wasn't for me. And I read those lines, and I remember I was in my bed at night reading that book, and I thought, that's me. I don't feel like I'm made for this. And so I think that's the invitation for all of us. What are we made for?
Mhm,
How did God create us, and what did he create us for? And who does he want us to be, or who does God call us to be? And yeah,
mhm.
that really, it changed my life. And I thought, I'm not made for this. But it took a while for me to kind of move out of that. But it also took a while for me to get to the point where I could even ask those questions. I mean, before
Yeah.
in the book, you know, I'm
You're
a
you're
teenager, I'm in my 20s, and I'm just trying to,
you're
make
struggling,
it.
you're working, you're going to the prom, you're going to Penn, you're
That's
going to
right.
dances, you're partying with people, you're having a
Mm,
ball,
mhm.
and it's not that your life doesn't have meaning, it's just that you have not yet assigned it a meaning.
Yeah, very astute. That's a great comment because we don't wanna say that, people who aren't religious have lives that have no meaning, and or that my life as a teenager, high school student, college student didn't have any meaning. But I think you're right. It was that I didn't really know what that meaning was. I didn't know what I was called to. And it
Mhm,
takes a while for people to figure that out. It certainly took a while for that to be revealed to me.
mhm,
And so, in the end, the book really had to go back, to when I was 13 or 14 and start
mhm,
out because that's where everything really starts. It starts
mm,
in our
mhm,
childhood, and to be able to look back and say, aha, that those moments were really meaningful to me and those moments
mhm,
helped to form me. And I know you have had those moments too, because we talked about it on my own podcast and,
mhm,
your family growing up and how they
mhm,
helped form you. We have that great word in the Jesuits, formation, which I love. We're being
mhm.
formed. God forms us, so that's what really the book is about. And the book is really it's to invite the reader to look back on his or her life and say, "How did God
Yes,
form me?"
absolutely. And it's done with such ease. I mean, it's a
Thank you.
book that you can read in 1 or 2 sittings and just soak it in, and it helps also to frame a life in a way that helps all of us see the meaning in our choices, even though we may not understand them at the time.
Yeah, and probably it'll take years and years for us to understand it. At the end of the book, I talk about what I learned from these summer jobs and
Mhm. Mhm.
how much when I was doing them, I hated them. I mean, we all most teenagers, they're not happy to be working as a busboy or a dishwasher or a caddy or a movie theater usher. They'd rather be with their friends or relaxing or
Sure.
whatever. But
Right.
I look back and now I see a lot of grace in those jobs and in the people that I met, and really just very simply kind of teaching me a work ethic. I mean, show up, do your work, pitch in, Don't be lazy, right? Be kind.
Mm-hmm.
Ask when
Mm-hmm.
you don't know how to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the end of the book too. It's a lot of life lessons that I learned.
You go through a tremendous tragedy in the book,
Mm,
the loss of one of your closest friend, and then several others, and you describe it. It was an accident.
hmm
Interesting to me, and what for me was the turning point in the book in terms of I knew you would become a priest, even though when I'm reading the book, I pretend I don't know that. But when you heard the news, you had to be alone. You told your parents and then you ran.
mm,
And your parents were at the door and they were trying to talk to
mm,
you, trying to connect and communicate. I thought to myself, well, right there, that's the cornerstone of being a servant, a priest, right there, is that you wrote about your parents trying to get to you. And isn't being a priest putting yourself in the shoes of somebody else? You
mm.
almost put yourself in the shoes of your parents who were trying to help you, but you wouldn't accept the help.
Yeah, that's very insightful. I never thought of that actually. I think, as a boy, what happened was I was 20 years old, and my freshman year roommate was killed in an automobile accident along with another friend in a car that
Mhm.
was driven by another friend, and it was, a complete accident. And I had never had anything like that happen to me before. I mean, I'd had older
Mm.
relatives that had died, and I went to funerals and stuff, but I was so stunned. And I remember I was in my room, and my parents were outside saying, "What's wrong?" And just
Mhm.
concerned. And that they were in their own way trying to help as much as they could. I didn't want their help. I'm a 20-year-old boy, right, or young man, and
Mhm.
that is not
Mhm.
the kind of person, at least when I was growing up, that really wants to be hugged and, talked to. And it eventually made me, for a long time, I'd say maybe 6 or 7 months, just stop believing in God and stop going to church, and until a
Mhm.
friend of mine intervened, which is another pivotal moment in the book.
Yes,
But yeah, it
yes.
was a really, I think it was one of the saddest, really saddest moments of my life, and one of the most shocking, because I
Mhm.
just nothing prepared me for that. So
Mm-mm.
the book changes a bit in tone, you know.
It changes in tone, but it also then introduces us to the concept of time and how are you spending, and that came into your GE decision to get out of corporate America,
Mm.
which was it was bigger than it wasn't just for you, is you could not find your purpose in it.
Yeah, I graduated from the Wharton School at Penn, and I got a
Mhm.
great job at GE. I was working in New York, not far
Mm.
from where I'm working right now, just a couple blocks actually,
Yeah.
at 51st and Lex. It was very exciting. Early '80s, I was a yuppie, Reaganomics. I went to lots of great clubs and went out drinking I mean, a lot, like a young person would do in those days and probably still does today. But eventually I thought, after about 6 years, this is not for me. This is not who I want to be,
Mhm.
and this is not what I want to do, and it took a long time for me to get there, really, because as I say in the book, I was on a kind of conveyor belt, and nothing wrong with it. I mean, my parents wanted me to do well in school and, so you could get a good job, so you could get a good salary. And once I
Mhm.
was off that conveyor belt, I thought, "Where am I?" You know? Who is this? And does this really make sense? And I really had to say, "Not for me." For a lot of people, it does, and a lot of my friends stayed with GE for their whole lives and were very happy and contributed to the common good and all that, but it just didn't work for me, and that was a hard decision, but it was almost inevitable.
Mhm. It wasn't meant to be for you. It just wasn't. Um, and again, you never judge corporate America
No.
as an entity, but here was what was interesting to me. I was waiting for the hunger, and what came through, I think, was even more powerful, Father Jim. What came through for me in terms of your life was your ability to recognize your feelings. And you're not a shut down human being. If you were shut down, you'd say, "This is the path. I have
Mm.
to make money. I get to be vice president of whatever, of cereal or whatever the heck it is at GE, and
Light bulbs.
I'll be happy. Light bulbs. I'll be happy." it wasn't like that with you. And I thought, oh, another sign you were going to be a priest because you were looking for something, but you weren't accusing everybody around you of not being enough to fill you up.
Well, I confess something to you? I'll turn the
Sure.
tables. Yeah. I it took a I think I was that kind of person to sort of push those feelings
Yeah.
down, but I sort of hit bottom. A friend of mine just did a review of this book, and I frankly never even thought of this word associated with where I was at age 25, which was I was
Hmm.
burned out, basically. And it took some burnout and migraines and stomach problems and stress related stuff that, people go through it, your body kind of reacts to really say, I can't do this. It was almost impossible to ignore. And I think what happens is, and we talked about this when you came on my podcast, The Spiritual Life, when our defenses are down, God can more easily break in. It's not that God
Mm-hmm.
punishes us and says, you're going to go through this terrible time in order that I might, lead you to the priesthood or lead you whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's that when our defenses are down, we don't have that shell up and God can break in. And that's what happened. I was really
Wow.
just kind of shattered. I mean, it wasn't like I was in bed all day crying and I got up and I went to work, but I was just kind of miserable. And I thought this can't continue. And at the same time that I felt sort of at my wits' end in corporate America, I discovered Thomas Merton, and that was a kind of
Mm.
a path out. So I often describe it to people as like a push-pull. The push was being pushed out of GE, and the pull was sort of towards the Jesuits. And again, it's when our defenses are down is when we are more open to that kind of
Mhm.
activity in our lives.
Mhm. Well, you did a wonderful plug for the independent bookstores. Well, in this case, Barnes and Noble, a big box store, but you found your Merton at the bookstore, which
Mhm.
is something I always say to folks, like when they're really struggling. I do recommend go kneel somewhere, the church of your choice or the synagogue or the mosque of your choice. Just go do your thing. But go to the bookstore
Yeah.
because every answer to every question is in books or the library. You could choose however you wanted to do it. But that struck me, and I went, oh, future writer for sure and priest. So I kept building this Napoleon of who you are. And then
That's a great.
then we get to something that I loved. Well, you're half a Sicilian, so
Yeah,
that's a big.
right.
And
I
we
also like
talked about that.
Napoleons too.
The Sicilians are going to go crazy for this, and the Italians they're going to love it. But I would like for you to help me with something because I struggle to express this to folks, but I know you know the answer. Could you please describe what it means to be in the presence of God in your life, in your human life?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think people think it means something mystical. And it can be. I mean, if you're a saint or you're a mystic, what does it mean to be in the presence of God? I would say that in two ways. The first way would be in your prayer, like in your private time with
Mhm.
God, one on one. It could be as simple as reminding yourself that you're in God's presence, right? That God is with you. And oftentimes when one does that, there is this feeling that you get. I mean, it's not something magical, of calm, of peace, of stability. And you can feel yourself in God's presence. You can feel yourself with God, right? Not all the time,
Mhm.
but often. But I don't. I think for most people, it happens more in day to day life. So, for example, I mean, obviously, things like going to church or a synagogue or a mosque, as you were saying, but I think, seeing the face of a newborn baby, right? Feeling the sunlight on your face after a snowstorm, being around, since we're talking about Sicilians, being around a big family gathering. I know this is
Yeah.
important for you. And
Yeah.
just feeling the sense of rightness and gratitude and awareness. So, being in the presence of God is mostly about
Mm.
noticing and being aware and being attentive. And I think that that is something that everyone can do because God wants to be with all of us.
Mhm. You were so curious about a lot of different things. Like Mother Nature's really essential to you, Jim. It's you Mother Nature, you could read clouds, you could read electrical storms.
That's right.
And you're on a golf course. Now, I'm going to have full disclosure here. I don't understand why anybody gives a flying fig about that sport. I find it boring. I don't understand it. They seem mean to me, the golfers. I have a lot of them in my family. This this inner tension to hit the ball into the I don't get it. But you have a story that I thought was foreboding and also showed that you listen to your inner voice despite repercussions that you know will come. So, could you tell the story of caddying for that man on the golf course and the rain? You could see it coming and no one would listen to you.
Yeah, so so I'm a caddy at the Philadelphia Cricket Club. Not sure how many
Oh.
Philadelphians are listening. And it is 19, I don't know, 78, 79, something like that. I'm 17, 18 years old. And I'm a terrible caddy. I mean, you know, lug the golf clubs and the golf bag and all that, but I don't know a whole lot about caddying. So I'm, being a good caddy throughout the summer, like an attentive caddy. Anyway, I drive to the golf course one morning and it is looking really rainy and stormy, as it often does in Philadelphia during the summer.
Mhm.
And we go out on the course and it really looks dark. And the golfer we keep going. And I think after about 4 or 5 holes, this huge clap of lightning. I mean, one of the loudest things I've ever heard in my life, just, thunders through the golf course. And I look around and then I see a couple, a minute or two later, I see lightning and then I'm counting. You can count the seconds to make
Yeah.
sure how far. And it's like 5 seconds, it's a mile away. And then it starts pouring. And I'm standing next to this golf bag, which has these metal poles, i.e. golf clubs sticking out of it. And one of the retrieving wand, golfers will know that where you get it out of the water hazard. I had used it earlier in this golfer's round and it was sticking up out of the
The bag.
bag. And I realized I'm standing next to a bag of lightning rods in an electrical storm under a tree. And it's pouring rain. It gets worse and worse. And the golfer says, "Stay there." And he runs towards the clubhouse, and I'm there. Now, a lot of the book is about my sort of seeking approval and wanting people to like me and love me and all that kind of stuff. And I thought I'm not gonna get electrocuted just to please this golfer. And I left it. I left the bag, which I think spilled over, as I remember. And I get back to the clubhouse, and the golfer was mad at me. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, it's so hard. Here I am. I'm 17, 18, and here's this you know, billionaire or whatever, not billionaire, but millionaire,
Mhm.
who's treating me like dirt and wants me to stand out next to his clubs and apparently keep them dry. And it was the first time that I really just went against everybody's expectations, as I recall.
Mhm.
But it took being electrocuted to do it. And he was still mad at me. You shouldn't have left the
Unbelievable.
clubs. Oh, well, you left the clubs and the bag fell over and I leaned it against the tree and he was ticked off. And so, yeah, I mean, it's about sort of defending yourself, that story a little bit. It's a kind of a funny story and a crazy story.
It is,
Uh,
but you see, that's the building of a man who will become a priest who's gonna give a homily every week.
yeah, and I also think it was, and I one of the reasons I share some of these stories of like mishaps and also being mistreated is that it taught me not only to sort of stand up for myself, but also not to treat people like that. There are a lot of stories in the
Mhm.
book about
That's right,
my
that's right.
being sort of, most of the stories about summer jobs are pretty funny and lighthearted and kind of silly. Uh, some of them are a little unbelievable. They're all true. But some of them are, being humiliated and being treated like dirt because you're a worker bee
You're
or you're a
young,
caddy. You're young. You're
you're a
not.
kid, yeah.
You're a kid. I didn't grow up in a wealthy family, and a lot of times they wouldn't even talk to you. They would call you either caddy or you. Give me my 9 iron or whatever, my driver, my wedge. And sometimes for 4 hours, you wouldn't say anything to this guy. And it was worse when you were, and again, not everyone at the cricket club was awful, but it was usually worse when you were in a pair or a trio or a foursome because they were all talking among themselves. And you were just this kid.
Well, how about the fact that this guy you were caddying for that day thought he was bigger than the weather? That was
Well,
interesting to me.
I think, yeah, I think he just stay there like I was a dog. And I'm not, I literally remember thinking, I'm next to a bag of lightning rods under a tree, which is where you're not supposed to be. And it was dark. It was that kind of
Yeah, ooh, it was so
greenish.
creepy, and you set the stage beautifully,
Thank you.
and I
Yeah.
didn't
Well,
know where you were gonna go. "Oh my
yeah.
gosh, is he gonna abandon the clubs?" And then you thought, "Screw it,
Yeah,
I'm
I did
going
say,
for shelter."
yeah, screw it is
You
right. He
probably
was not
used a
happy.
probably used a bigger epitaph than that, but the point is, wow, you knew, and and Jim, there's another theme and a golden thread in this book, which is really know thyself.
Mm.
Because if you know thyself, you will serve God.
Yeah, and I also think it's about, knowing other people too, and
Mm.
understanding who they are, and,
Mhm.
I talk about busboy, dishwasher, caddy, lawnmower, and one of the lessons of the book is, I will never treat people the way this person or that person
Mm.
treated me. Now, by the same token, there are a lot of wonderful people in the book who are, super generous to me and kind and nice and show me things, and
Sure.
it's about I'm just realizing this as we're talking. It's about learning. I should have put this in the book. It's about learning what kind of adult I want to become.
Wow.
I never thought
True.
about this until now. I should put that in the second edition.
I
But it
think so.
is, yeah, it is learning. I don't want to be the kind of adult who yells at a caddy or puts him in danger, mortal danger. I do want to be the kind of adult who helps a young person or is generous and is hardworking and is kind. And I think, kindness is really the message of the book. Being kind is 90% of the Christian life, I always say.
Well, you really describe being a Christian as just 2 words, be kind, and
Be kind.
if you really do that, everything falls into
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, and that's
Everything.
yeah, and interesting, Adriana, it's people say, "Oh, that's not enough." Well, I mean, you could be kind to people around you, and you can be kind to people who live overseas, you can be kind to people who we don't know, so I think that really that love, that charity really kind of can radiate out. But I think people often feel justified in being mean. I talk about this in the book. You feel
Mhm.
justified because your dinner was spoiled, or because it's raining in your golf game, or because something didn't happen right at work. And but the choice is, do you want to go down that path and be mean to other people and take it out on other people, or can you let it sort of die within you and just be kind? Because
That's
we all
right.
have, that great line. I wish I knew who said it. Everybody is fighting a battle, right? Be kind because everyone's
Right.
fighting a battle you don't know about.
Everybody's got a battle going on.
Yeah, and so be kind to everybody, but also just because you're fighting a battle doesn't mean you have to be a jerk to everybody.
It's so true. There's one point in the book that I thought, "Oh, this is gonna be when Father Jim goes into show business," which was when you worked in a movie theater. We share this as a job. I did too. And your description of it slayed me because people don't understand when you work in a movie theater that you're responsible for the tickets, the popcorn, the cleanup, and the marquee.
The marquee.
Will you
Yes.
please tell your marquee story?
I
Because
will, but I wanna hear what movie theater and what did you do?
well, I was at okay, so I was sitting around with a bunch of my friends in Greenwich Village. I lived in a boarding house and I got my first apartment and everybody was in there and I was lamenting the fact that I didn't have a boyfriend. So one of my beautiful gay men friends said to me, "Look, we need to position you. You need to be behind glass."
So, what
He
does
said,
that mean? You mean
in
like as a
a
like an
well, he
object of
said, "You need to be well lit
so
in a
funny,
booth."
so
And I
funny.
said, "Well, where can I get a job like that?" He said, "Oh, I know the man that owns the revival movie house called Cinema Village, and I am going to get you in that booth. You're well lit. People, you're going to
That's
meet more men in a
that's so
10 block.
great.
Okay, all
No,
right.
because you're on display.
Now you're on display. So
Right.
let me tell you the first thing that
Yeah.
it was untrue about my beloved friend's statement is that people that are going to the movies already have a date. Okay? And so everybody's a couple. The second thing is I am not good at making change. And it was 2 movies for $5. It would be like Gunga Din and My Favorite Wife in a double bill. And it turns out the only single men that were going there were trench coat men. Creeped me out. Okay. But at one point, it got so bad, the line got so long to get into this movie. My sister got on the line and said, "Get out of the booth. You're embarrassing our family." Because I was taking fivers and 20s and I was trying to make change. And you had to take the little, you ripped the ticket, you gave them half, and you put the other on a spindle.
Yeah.
All right. So it was a disaster. And
Stressful.
then they said, you have to change the marquee.
Yeah.
Now I worked there about 8 days. And evidently, when I was fired, this is what the boss told me. We can't afford to keep you. You've broken too many letters because you put them on a thing. Remember how you had to slide them in?
Very well.
But Father Jim, you have to be an acrobat and in a balancing act and then to hold that thing and get it in there and spell it right. And I would lay them out on the sidewalk. One guy stepped on it and broke one. I mean, it
That's
was the
terrible.
whole thing was just a disaster.
Well, I
But
thank you.
yours was hilarious too. Just tell
Thank you. Yeah, there was a movie marquee. For people who don't know what that is, that's the sign basically.
Mhm.
And you had to go to what we called the letters room, where all the plastic letters were. They're about, like a foot high, and
Uh-huh.
fill up a shopping cart full of enough letters to. So one of the movies that summer was the Cat from Outer Space, which was truly terrible. So you had to spell out the Cat from Outer Space from both sides, bring all the letters out,
Mhm.
climb up onto this marquee, which is about 10, 15 feet off the ground on a
Yes.
ladder. And
Yes.
then it's a summer night in Philadelphia. It's the blaring lights from the movie marquee. And that means every gnat, moth, fly, bat from the tri-state area would come and flap and buzz, and it was awful. And then people would drive by and yell things, "Hey, jerk," But one of the
Just
funny parts of the
humiliating.
marquee, oh, it was humiliating. One of the funny parts of the book, which I really enjoyed, and I went on a Facebook page. There's a Facebook page for people who grew up in my hometown, Plymouth Meeting,
Love it.
Conshohocken, White Marsh, and I asked them about this. I said, "Do you remember that people would change the marquee titles?" Because I remember the Cat from Outer Space, people would they'd climb up on the ladder and they remove it, and the Cat from Outer Space became Crap from Outer Space, and they would say, "You gotta go and change it." And so I went to this Facebook page, and they reminded me of all these other ones that we had known about. One was, uh, some I can't say on the
No,
air.
you can't. Some you
I
can't.
cannot. But one was, Smile. There was a movie called Smile, and
Yes.
they stole letters from another movie, and it said, you drove down Germantown Pike, and it said, "Smile, you're on LSD." That was one. And no, so that was kind of a pain, and you would do it in the dark because you had to wait for the movie to end, the old movie to end. Let's say The Goodbye Girl was ending
Yeah.
at 9 o'clock was the last show. 9:30 was usually the last show. So at 9:35, when everybody was inside, you would go to the letters room. It's in the dark. You're crossing a parking lot with this shopping cart full of letters that are bouncing out and hitting the floor, and cars are going beeping at you in your jacket and your bow tie and your polyester pants, climbing up on this ladder. I just thought, what am I doing? Um,
You were
s-
so cute. You were so there's photographs throughout, but you were so cute. And the way you describe these scenes, I
no, I
it
mean,
was like
people would like drive by, "Hey, Poindexter, nice tie. What kind of a crappy summer job is that?" I remember someone shouting that, and I do remember all these things are. I mean, I have a pretty good memory. All these things happened.
I must
One
say
time, my
so.
friends drove by. Some friends of mine, they stopped on Germantown Pike in Plymouth Meeting, and I'm up in the marquee, and they said, "Hey, we're going to the movies. You want to come?" And I said, "I'm at the movies already." It's pretty funny.
And you
So,
watched The Goodbye Girl about 10,000
oh
times.
yeah,
I love that movie too.
well, let me tell you, I saw it about 50 times. I mean, yeah, because you're standing at the back of the movie, there's nothing else to do.
So you
Watch The
just watch.
Goodbye Girl, The Cat from Outer Space, Return of the Pink Panther. One funny story I tell in the book is, at one point, Jack Nicklaus, the great golfer, happened
Uh-huh.
to be nearby, I think at the White Marsh Valley Country Club for a
Uh-huh.
tournament. I actually looked it up, and there he was, and online or whatever. And I saw him, and he was kind of, not too many famous people come to Plymouth meeting. And he came out of the theater. He had seen whatever. And my dad was a huge sports fan. And he said, "Well, what did you say to him?" And I thought, and I it's a true story. And I said, "Exit to your left, please." That's what I said to him. So my brush with greatness,
Oh my gosh,
golfing greatness.
that's so fantastic. But every story is just a little gem, and and it illuminates something about what propelled you forward to where you are today. And maybe watching the Goodbye Girl, which I think was a terrific script, might have
Sure.
helped you along the way a little bit. But before I let you go, I have to show you something.
Please do. I want to see it.
Okay.
I think I know what it might be.
I don't know. I don't know. But
Something from your pet. Something
I
from your
was
past.
so traumatized that I have these.
Oh my gosh, where did you get those?
Well, I don't know. I can't remember. It was like on the side of a road.
What's on the back? Do they have
You
clips on the back or little
Yes, sir.
let me see.
So see, you
Yes,
slid those
exact no, it's
in,
exactly. They had those
and
clips.
then you went
Oh,
like this.
I'm getting goosebumps. Honestly,
I'm
and those
gonna have to
clips,
share these with you.
that's
But I can't
amazing.
I think it isn't good for me to give you the X for obvious reasons, but I'll give you the O
That's
because
amazing. Do you know
because
what's so
the O.
funny, Adriana? I remember the feel of those clips. Those clips would actually, give you cuts because they were very
Yeah.
sharp.
Oh my god, you could impale yourself right
Yeah.
now.
That's
That's why I
so
keep them
funny.
on the
I
wall.
haven't seen those in years.
And you
That's
explained it
crazy.
perfectly. They're 2 feet tall, and it's a thing. A little
Well,
bit
and
bigger than
also
2 feet.
imagine I'll share with our viewers and listeners. Imagine a shopping cart full of full of those things.
Okay.
I also the other funny story I tell in the book is so I had to do one in the rain.
Okay.
So I'm in my stupid polyester blazer, my General Cinema polyester blazer, and my bow tie, and you don't they don't give you an umbrella, so you're just walking through the pouring rain with the shopping cart full of letters. And I got up there, and I'm so mad, and I'm just, you're a teenager, you're mad about this. And I come back in, and the manager says, "You forgot the other side." I was like, "Oh my god," so upset. But you got to go through this stuff.
You have to.
You have
You
to, and
must.
it's
You
very
must.
humbling. You must, and it also, again, it gives you an appreciation for people who still work in jobs like that, right? That are manual labor and that are probably not enjoying themselves, and to be kind to them and be patient with them and to be charitable to them.
Mhm.
But it's so funny. I've not seen those letters for 50 years.
Well,
It's
you're gonna get
amazing.
the O. I'm giving you the
What
O
did
so
you?
you
So
can
what
make
you
it.
found them by the side of the road?
Well, I thrift and I saw them and I went, "Oh my god." So the kid selling them didn't know what they were.
Of course,
And he said, "What are
amazing.
these?" I said, "Well, it's a long story," and I bought them.
That's exactly the same. Yeah, those are the yeah. Who knows? Maybe they came from Greenwich Village or Plymouth Meeting. That's so
Who
funny.
knows? But the O is gonna fit right under your painting there.
Oh, I'm definitely going to put that up. I'll say it was from the Goodbye Girl.
Yeah, that's right. You
A
could
lot of
say
O's.
that. And I don't wanna say I'll keep the X, but I don't think it was from anything that, we
That's
should be
fantastic.
promoting on the
Thank
show
you.
here.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. So, Father Jim, we're so proud of you. I just wanna tell you, when I tell folks that you're coming on the podcast, they get so excited because they look to you, uh, for wisdom. They look to you because 'cause you're steady. They look to you because 'cause you're funny and also knowledgeable. And for those who don't know the Jesuit community, I would say read up on it. We are all the beneficiaries of centuries of your hard work. But I've noticed something lately, and before I let you go, I got to ask you this. Now,
Sure.
I was raised in Appalachia. Catholic was the most unpopular thing you could be. When I moved to New York, I was stunned because there was a church on every corner, Catholic church. I'm like, I couldn't. And we had a priest in the family, my great uncle, who was also a journalist in Bergamo, Italy. So we always revered the written word, and we revered him, and he was a beautiful parish, village priest, and ran the Lecco di Bergamo. He was an editor, and so we always had put you in high esteem. at this point in my life, people are coming back to church.
Mm.
I see it on 14th Street, and I go to Saint Bernard, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and I always recommend people sit through a mass that's not in your language. You learn a lot. And then, of course, my Saint Francis Xavier over on 16th Street. So we tell me, because I know when you and your fellow priests get together, somebody has to be looking at each other going, "Have you noticed this?"
Yeah, it's happening. It's it's happening. It's a lot of young people as well,
Very
and
much so.
I think what's going on is it's a search for meaning. I mean,
Mhm.
and the question is, well, why now? I read a scholar who called it post secular. So
Interesting.
yeah, which I find really interesting. So we have an age, let's say, from recent memory in the 40s and 50s, where everybody was religious, right? I mean,
Mhm.
everyone went to church and all that. And then maybe in the 60s, for a million different reasons, people fell
Mhm.
away. They became more secular, 80s, 90s. And I think what's going on is that this younger generation is finding secularity, that is non religion, sort of limiting. Like it doesn't answer all their questions. And they want answers to their questions. They want identity. They want mystery. They want awe. They want God. We all have a natural desire for God. So I think that's what's going on. It is surprising, and particularly in Catholic churches, there's a lot of young people. I have friends who are campus ministers, right? So they
Yep.
work in Catholic or Jesuit colleges, and they're saying, "My gosh, like at the 10 o'clock, the 10 p.m. Sunday mass is full, at
Mm.
Georgetown or at BC," and it's happening. So I think that's how I look at it. Secularity is leaving people
Mhm.
kind of cold, and so they want answers, and they're coming back. So let's
Well,
hope it
25
continues.
years ago, I would go to St. Joseph's over on 6th Avenue.
Mm,
You can't get into that mass on Sunday nights
yep,
now with
yep,
the young people. It's packed and the
it
music's
is.
incredible, and that's something you get in New York that you often don't get around the country is this,
No, we're lucky.
"Oh, we're so lucky because
We're lucky.
you get a Broadway star singing your
No, and
cantor."
you don't like one church to walk 5 blocks.
That's right, and
There's
you're
another
at
beautiful
another one.
church. Yeah.
Well, there's one other thing about this book that I think is really important. AI is coming in. We're not going to stop it. It's like the cotton gin 100 years ago. You're not going to stop it. It's here. But what I found so interesting here is your ability to read the room, the cultural room. And this book tells you kind of in order how every task, job, anything you're paid to do, how it leads you closer to your voice and how it helps you refine your voice and how it keeps you loose for the changes that are coming. So I have to thank you for this because this is going to every one of my nieces and nephews, my own daughter. I think it's important to because with laughter comes wisdom. Always, humor is the path. Um, you give us a set of it's a primer. It's a way for us to piece together what seems to be disparate, you know, stories, but they're not. They're pop beads. They all connect.
Well, thank you. No, and that is the idea, and I hope that people can learn from my own experiences, basically what their path is, right? I also think, for people of a certain age that adults can look back on their summer experiences and their summer jobs and their crazy experiences and say that I've been hearing a lot from friends. Like for example, your experience
Ugh.
as a movie theater marquee and as an usher. I just talked to someone yesterday from NPR who was a caddy, and everybody has these experiences. And to encourage people to see that, to see how they formed you, to see where God's hand was, and to know that God can work through anybody's life, whether or not he's a busboy or a failed movie theater usher behind a glass display. I love that idea of your gay friends telling you you need to be like on display.
Listen,
Um,
and I want to say
Beautiful.
this too: the chances that the men on the line were straight was also very rare because when you're doing a Betty Davis retrospective, you're not bringing in the football players, if you know what I'm saying.
That's so funny.
But
Well,
it's beautiful.
anyway, no. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. It really means a
Yeah,
lot to me that you enjoyed it,
loved
and
it,
thank you for having me on too.
loved it, loved it. Love you, Father Jim. Thank you.